Is that good?
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so no audio. Oh, Carol, you've lost audio now. Okay.
What does that say?
If you lose audio, then please try phoning in.
Andrea.
Yes, Chris?
Chris here. Yeah, Chris Ransom here. Okay, so I'm doing this. I'm on my phone, and I've got the thing up on my computer here. I couldn't sign in, so I just want to let you know I'm here.
Oh, good. Okay.
So yeah, because normally you'd sign in so you can see somebody's name, right? I didn't do that, so.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get started, and I'll keep an eye on the chat box. So if anybody has any questions or any difficulties, then we'll try to address them. But if you are having problems with audio, which you can't hear me, but I just put in the chat, you might have to phone in. So I'd like to welcome you all here tonight. As I said, I don't have a Vanna with me tonight. I am Vanna and the presenter. So I will be allowing people in, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat box. So if things get a little disjointed, I apologize. So far, I'm not having to mute everybody else because I'm not hearing a whole lot of background noise. So welcome. I'm glad that you were all able to join me. Jump in whenever you can if you have questions, or use the chat box. So team meeting development. There are many different kinds of meetings that we need to reclaim presenter role. Sorry, Shauna, you're not the presenter anymore. Share my screen. Okay, we're back to me. There are many times during the season, many different kinds of meetings that we need to run. And I just wondered I thought I would share some of my experience. I've been to 5 or 6 World Junior Championships as team leader for Team Canada. I've also been to 5 Scotties with 3 different teams. So I've observed some different styles of meetings, all of them effective and all of them tailored to the teams that are using them. So I thought I would just share some of my experiences. Team meetings really help set the stage for performance. They establish expectations. They're a reminder of goal attainment, and they help to build relationships within the team. Oh, come on. Oh, I got to do it. Okay. So the objectives of this session, we're going to discuss the 5 W's of team meetings, and the 5 W's are simply the 5 W's of journalism: who, what, where, why, and when. I'll talk about the different types of meetings, the purpose of different types of meetings, and then I'll share with you some of the formats of some of the teams that I've worked with and that I've observed. So why do we have team meetings? Team meetings are meant to support the team's performance by providing focus. And just a second, I just want to answer one chat, okay? Sorry. Okay. Oh, darn it, I did it again, sorry. Very disjointed tonight, I do apologize. But once we get rolling, we'll be good. Okay, so you're supporting the team's performance by providing focus. You're bringing everybody together.
Audio.
And it reminds everyone of what's ahead of them. It helps to identify the goals, reinforce the goals, the outcome goals, what the goal is for this season, for your pie in the sky goals, what your ultimate goals are, your performance goals. What is it that you need to do in order to achieve those outcome goals. And finally, process. What is the process that you're going to follow in order to achieve those goals? So the different times of year, of season, will involve different processes and different performance goals. Team meetings help establish tasks and activities. What is it that each team member needs to be responsible for? What do they need to do in order to help move them towards those goals? It clarifies process. Having team meetings clarified process. So we're getting together. This is our agenda. This is what we're working on at this team meeting, and this is why we're doing it. So what is the task? The impacts of distractions can be reduced by acknowledging and identifying what is within the team's control and what is out of their control. And it also enhances communication. It sets a pattern for communication. So everybody knows what the expectations are. Everybody is free to contribute. And it makes for more open lines of communication. And as you all know, you're all experienced, communication in our sport is huge. It's something that is often not recognized immediately as perhaps being an issue on a team, but if you have good communication, you avoid a whole lot of problems. So the when depends on the yearly training plan. So there's pre-season meetings that you need to have, there's post-season, and then the in-season meetings, which form the bulk of your competitive year. You have regular team meetings, regular meetings where you're working on different aspects of performance. There's pre-competition meetings, pre-game meetings, timeouts, fourth or fifth end break, depending on the length of the game, post-game, and then post-competition. And I had one more meeting that was brought to my attention, thanks to Len, and we'll discuss that at the end of presentation as well. And that's a first-time meeting. So when a team gets together for the first time, or you have a new player on the team, the meeting to introduce and welcome that player into the team is very important. The other W's, where, who, and what. So when the when of the meeting will determine where the meeting is held. So if it's at a competition, obviously, and it's a pre-game meeting, obviously that is where the meeting is going to occur. The where could be at the club. It could be at somebody's home. So that's the where. Who is involved will, for the most part, include the team, but it may also involve people outside the team, depending on the why. So you can have parents' meetings. If you're working with the U21 and younger crowd, you'll have parent meetings. But there's also other people that are involved in, even with the adult teams, you have significant others, you have families, friends. There may be times when you want to involve them for some specific reason. What is the purpose of the meeting? And it all depends on the other W's. So what are you talking about? What are you trying to accomplish at that moment in time? So I'm getting a little bit of feedback from somebody. So if you could mute yourself, please, that would be helpful. Pre-season, in-season, and post-season meetings, the purpose is to confirm the goals for each phase of the yearly training plan. Goals that should have been identified at the end of the previous season through competition success or lack of success, a gap analysis, and coach and player identification. So you're always considering in your preseason and your postseason meetings the performance that you've just experienced. And the reason for that is to always keep the team and the individuals on the team moving forward. You need to have task identification during these meetings. So in the preseason, what kind of strength and conditioning is the team going to undertake? Or are there mental training goals that they need to accomplish? Are they going to meet with a specialist? Or are there injuries that need to be either rehabbed, or are there weaknesses that need to be prehabbed? Check-ins. Check-ins are really important to ensure that everybody is doing fine. If you have injuries or you have had problems during the season, check in to make sure that people are addressing those issues. When I was with Team Fleury, one of the ways that we checked in during the preseason, we developed a Facebook page, and it was meant to be about their strength and conditioning plans, because we had 3 players in Sudbury, 1 player in Calgary, and 1 player in Thunder Bay. So they established their strength and conditioning goals and who they were going to be working with as a trainer, and then they would report in via Facebook. And it was only the team that it was a private group, but they could go in and check and just see what everybody else was doing. And was it similar to what they were doing? Was it Orange Theory, or was it hockey, a hockey fitness center? It was a really good way to keep track. It helps with competition planning. And then the frequency of the meetings is going to be different throughout the year. So preseason, maybe you're only meeting once every 2 weeks or once a month. In season, it's going to be a little more frequently. And then postseason, of course, you may have 1 or 2 meetings to debrief and to analyze success. Structure of meetings, you want to make them, for the most part, similar to a practice plan. So you want to ensure that you have a time limit on it, that everything is planned out. You try to ensure you've got the required equipment, it's accessible and functioning. Sorry about tonight. Internet connection. What meeting platform or venue are you using? I mean, right now we're all using, if we're meeting with our teams, we are probably all using something like Zoom or Join Me or GoToMeeting, something like that. So making sure that everything is working and in place. What kind of resource material do you need? Is somebody taking notes? Introduction and review of the agenda with timelines so that you don't lose track and lose people. Seek additions to the agenda if you haven't already done so. So the team needs to have input into the agenda. Discuss then the tasks that need to be undertaken to move the team towards their goals. So early in the season, of course, it's going to be strength and conditioning, mental toughness, distraction control, development of strategical plans. You can be designing your playbook earlier in the season. Some of you will have noticed that I added technical skills to this slide as people were joining, because I hadn't really thought of it as a task for the preseason, but it is, because when you consider your postseason results, your performance goals and results, those technical skills need to have a place in the agenda, but not the whole agenda, and it won't be a big part of the agenda, of course, until you get close to getting on the ice. There are some mental skills that you can build around technical skills, distraction control, imagery, mental rehearsal. All of that can be undertaken before you actually get on the ice. So pre-competition meetings. In the week before the competition, you want to consider what kind of travel arrangements have been made, or if they haven't been made, maybe they need to be made. Who's riding with who? If you're flying, has that all been looked after? The competition schedule review, have a look at the schedule and see what the possibilities are. When you go to a provincial or a national or regional, the schedule is pretty much set, but if you're going to another event, a Bonspiel or another competition, you don't always know what the schedule is going to be until you start winning or losing. The competition venue, a discussion can take place about the competition venue. Have you been there before? I've had a team ask me, what color is on top on the scoreboard? And that was important to them. So I think it was Nippigan that we were playing at. And so I Googled like crazy until I could find a photo of the Nippigan scoreboard and then hope that the scoreboard hadn't changed. But anyway, so being familiar with a competition venue is very important. If you've been there before, reminding everybody where the change rooms are, where you get onto the ice, where the viewing area is, how many sheets of ice are there? The rocks, are they red and green rocks? Are they red and yellow? Just making people familiar with the venue as much as you can. Review the expectations at the competition. So timing of your pregame meetings. How far ahead of the game do you need to meet? What time are you arriving at the venue? The daily schedule. What time do you wake up and what time do you go to bed? And role of others, family, partners, avid fans. What is their role in all of this? Performance goals. What are the performance goals that you're hoping the team to achieve at that competition? And then you need to build in flexibility for unexpected games like tiebreakers or back-to-back games. You need to be able to build in nutrition and a bit of a break between games in order to build predictability for the team and fuel their tank. So Carol, this next slide is for you. I was out at the at the White Cat. That's a good picture of Colleen because I did find one that wasn't nearly as flattering, but I thought that flattering is better. But anyway, I was out at the White Camp several years ago, many years ago, and Colleen Jones came to talk to the kids, and we were all crowded into this little room, but she had them just spellbound. And one of her quote was the 5 P's of performance. So proper preparation prevents poor performance. And you can see the kids all sitting there counting. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's 6 P's, but Colleen didn't care. She just carried on. Everybody was kind of laughing. So. But it is true. It is true. The more that you can prepare, the more that you have routine, the more predictable the situation is for your team. And predictability is such a huge thing when it comes to reducing distractions. The team knows what they're prepared for. They know what they're going to do. They know what they have to do, and they have a schedule. They know when they have to be at the venue, when they know what time they have to be in bed at night. It just becomes part of their routine. It sets behavior expectations. I had a meeting with a team that was going to senior nationals for the first time, and I said to them, one of the things I've become aware of with that age of competitor is that competition is great. Social life is sometimes greater. And it can be the same thing with kids. If you get the social butterfly that really wants to stay and visit with other teams, or is a chatterbox and wants to stay up late at night, you need to make sure that you set the behavior expectations and get buy-in from everybody that once the competition is over, then there's time for fun. But in the meantime, we will take breaks. There will be time for fun, but this is what we need to do to take care of business. Sharing this with important others also makes them aware of when the team is available to them. So at many competitions that are out of town, the family comes and they want to have a family team dinner, or they want to take their family member out for dinner one night. But have a look at the schedule and set aside, if you can, a time where families can do what they want. This served us really well years ago out in Charlottetown, and we had a team dynamics issue develop, and we were working through it, but everybody needed a break. And that was the night that we had the evening off, and the families all wanted to get together with their children, adult children, and take them out for dinner. So some were going out for dinner as a big group, others were going out for dinner as a smaller unit. But our agreement was, after dinner, before bed, we were all going to come back to the hotel, meet for half an hour, and just ensure that everybody was okay. And it was interesting because it was, they did not perform well in the game before the dinner. And the next morning they went back out on the ice just like the old team. So they worked through the issues extremely well, but they were prepared for that. So the pregame meeting, this is where the pregame and postgame meeting I'm going to focus a little bit more on. The pregame meeting is critical to the immediate preparation for the game. It's the time to bring the team together, to focus, a reminder of what the focus is. The team needs to decide how long before the game the pregame meeting will take place. Two of the women's teams that I've worked with preferred to have their pregame meeting at the hotel, not at the venue, because it was sometimes very difficult to find space, especially in an arena, a quiet spot to gather and work on what we had to work on. So you can do it in the hotel, you can do it at the venue, or you can do it in the vehicle on the after you get to the venue, but someplace quiet where there are fewer distractions, because you only need to keep it about 10 minutes. This meeting can be either very, very structured, or it can be quite informal, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it really should be no more than about 10 minutes. It can have a team-driven format and agenda that is established in the preseason. So I've worked with teams that they just want to get to the club, they want to get changed, have a quick come together, talk about what they feel they need to talk about, then they go warm up and they're ready for the game. Other teams want something very, very structured. Once at the venue, if you're going to meet at the venue, that's where it helps sometimes to have somebody go and kind of do a bit of a reconnaissance trip for you to see if there's someplace quiet where you can have a meeting, or do you need to make other plans. A couple of funny stories related to Team Fleury. We were at Canada Cup one time, and we found, you know how they have the walkways to the seats. Well, we found a nice, quiet little walkway. There were a couple of rooms on either side, but it didn't appear that anybody was in any of those rooms at the time that we chose this spot. So that's where we would have our pre and our post-game meetings. And we'd sit down on the floor and do our meeting, and then away we'd go. Well, we came back, I think it was the third game, we came back to this nice quiet little spot, and all of a sudden there's a table and 6 chairs there for us. So we were very grateful for that. We sat there, we were much more comfortable, especially for an old lady trying to get up off the floor. And we learned that we were outside of the officials' room. And so thank goodness we hadn't said anything derogatory about the officials. But it was very nice of them to set things up for us. And then another time when we were in China, there really wasn't any place, and we didn't have really the option of meeting ahead of time because we had transportation from the hotel to the venue, and it was very strict, and the girls felt that it was too far ahead of time to meet at the hotel. So we would get to the venue and we'd stay. It was a big open room. We'd stake out our little spot on the floor, and the girls would sit and do their journaling. At that time, everybody had their own journal, and we would talk and write and journal, and the other teams were very, very respectful of us. So they let us do our work. You have to make sure that your team meeting isn't too far in advance once you get to the venue. Some teams aren't comfortable with just kind of standing around. With one team that I worked with, that was the case. We would have our team meeting and go out into the playing surface. So the girls started playing catchphrase. They brought the catchphrase machine with them, and they would play catchphrase until it was a way to loosen themselves up. With Team Flurry, we ended up meeting in the hotel and then getting to the venue just in time to do a warm-up and get into the pregame practice. Some of the possible agenda items, and I think back to Team Madaw. Sherry Madaw had a very structured pregame meeting, which I will share with you. And these were some of the factors that they identified that they wanted to touch on, discuss briefly before every game. So the game factors were ice, rocks, the opposition, and maybe their experience against this team. Another team that I worked with didn't really care who they were playing. It didn't matter. They were going to go out and play their own game. But Sherry's team wanted to talk briefly about that. Performance factors or goals, mental, physical, technical, and tactical. And then under each one of those, each player was to identify one thing that they were working on, but then the team also identified one thing under each of those factors that the team was working on. So they always had a goal, a performance goal. Rather than looking at the outcome, they were focused on performance. And then they always had a team philosophy or statement at the end. One team I worked with talked about taking a point. When they had last rock, if they took a point, they didn't view it as a force. They viewed it as they were taking 1 point. So that kind of thing, something that the team identifies that they want to be their part of their philosophy. In tactical, you want to maybe review the strategy for the first 2 ends with or without last rock. What is the goal of each of those ends? So some examples of pregame meetings. The card party was the one that Sherry Madaw used, her team used, and they developed this in the preseason. So for each one of these agenda items, they had a card. So it might be made out of a recipe card. It might be made out of a piece of Bristol board or a piece of construction paper. Oh, we're frozen here. Come on. What happened? Sorry. Nope. Now we got it. Nope. Okay. Oh, for heaven's sakes. All right, let's end this. Just the show. Don't go away, anybody. I'm coming back. Okay. Okay. Sorry. So put an agenda item on each one of those cards with the goal. So on the front of the card, you write the item, the agenda item, and maybe what the goal is. Then you take a look at each of those agenda items: opposition, ice, rocks, your performance goals, and is it something you can control, or is it out of your control? If you can't control it, what Sherry's team did was they took a picture of a padlock and they put it on the back of the card. So during the meeting, let's say they discussed their mental goals. They acknowledged them, they stated them, and then because that was within their control, there was no lock on the back of that. So I'm going to show you just in a second. But the last statement, that is the team's philosophy, can also include their goals. So with Team Fleury, the goal always talked about nationals and worlds. So here's an example of something that possibly the team has control of. So the card says game tactics, and then it would have one team performance goal under tactics. That could be blank the first end with last rock, force the opposition to one without last rock, if they didn't know yet who had last rock. Can we control this? Can the team control that? Yes, there is control there. So discuss the game plan, and perhaps you consider the opposition in that discussion. However, when you look at the card with the opposition on it, can we control who we play or how they play? There isn't a lot of control there. So that card would have a lock on the back. So the team would discuss the opposition, what their experience was against that opposition in the past, and then they turned that over, and that was the end of the discussion until after the game. That did not factor into the way the team played the game. Another example of an agenda is the loosey-goosey, soft agenda. So a team that I went to, Switzerland with, and Estonia, they had a very soft agenda. Their coach led it. It was based on what was being identified by the team. The purpose of that meeting was to bring the team together. They would just briefly touch on some performance goals, but they kept the atmosphere very relaxed with just the right amount of focus. The purpose really was just to get them all in the same mindset at the right level of activation. Another style or format that I've been part of is the journal style, and this worked really well for Team Fleury. It was a very structured agenda based on a journal that had been developed in the preseason. And each preseason, the team would tweak that journal somewhat so that it would better suit their needs as they developed. It was a printed and coil-bound book, but you don't have to use that. You could use a duotang, you could use photocopied sheet. Sometimes each player kept their own journal, Other times, as Team Fleury developed, we changed to one journal for the team. The leader of the meeting to complete the journal or to lead the discussion always changed. It was always somebody else's turn. And the note taker always changed as well. So they would keep that journal in the broom bag so that they never went to a competition without it. But I do have an example of that journal that I will share with everybody when I send out the meeting recording. So the post-game meetings, set a time limit for this meeting as well. Otherwise, you could get into a trap of going on and on and on, and people getting restless, wanting to go say hello to family or go to bed or get something to eat. Record the scoreboard. Record the rocks thrown. Team Fleury always recorded the rocks thrown and then what the experience was with those rocks. Did they like them or they didn't? Did they make any changes? Review the performance goals and did they achieve those goals? Those ones under mental, physical, tactical, technical. What are the observations from players and coach? What are you hearing from, what are your observations to them? And decide on a ratio for discussion of what went well and what can be done differently. I worked with one team for several years, and in the wins, when they had wins in our post-game meeting, it always seemed that they would discuss what went well, but then they had a tendency to focus on what didn't go so well. So we started to set a time limit or set a discussion limit on what didn't go well in the wins. We wanted it to stay positive. With the losses, there was a bit more discussion about what didn't go well and what we learned from it, what needed to change moving forward into the next game. If you can, either have somebody take notes or write down as soon as you are out of that meeting what the observations were, what was different. So back to the card party format. So the first card party takes about 10 minutes. The second part, the post-game card party, took a little bit longer because under each of those tactical, technical, mental, and physical goals, the team wanted to talk about their own achievement and the team achievement of goals or lack of achievement. So the card would get turned up. It had tactical written on it, and they would discuss that. Did we do it or didn't we? The next card, mental goals, gets turned up. They all get turned up. At the end of the discussion, at the end of the meeting, the fifth card is a card with the next game goals. And they always had a little picture of a trophy to remind them of what they were all there for. And end with a team statement as well. That the same team statement that was used for the pre-game card party can be used for the post-game card party. Loosey-goosey, same thing. It's still a soft agenda. It keeps the atmosphere positive, relaxed. If it's a loss, this is an opportunity to bring the team together and find the lessons. But again, with the loosey-goosey, you want to keep the meeting kind of not short, but efficient. Pay attention to body language. And maybe someone is not talking when they normally would. Watch for those things. You may have to address them in a private meeting later. Be aware of the elephant in the living room. Sometimes an issue will have come up on the ice, and it might be between two people, but everybody recognizes that the atmosphere isn't the same. What is the tension? Where is it coming from? You don't want that getting out of hand and negatively impacting the team's performance. Oh, it's frozen again. Sorry. Okay, journal style. So one page of the journal that Team Fleury developed, the first page was the pregame meeting, the second page was the postgame meeting. They always reviewed and recorded their performance. Same thing, different person leading the meeting, different person taking the notes. What did the team like about the game? What didn't they like about the game? And what were their performance goals going into the next game? This also had the rock information, ice information on it, and the scoreboard. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Back-to-back game strategy. This is tough sometimes because it seldom can be predicted. But if it can, if you're looking at a situation, you're looking at the draw and saying, this is what could happen. This is sometimes where family and fans can help, close fans. Ordering or getting food to make sure that the team refuels before going on to the ice next. You want to keep the atmosphere as calm and unhurried as you can. It's kind of like you're a duck. So you're paddling like crazy under the water, but you're moving really smoothly over the surface of the water. Keep the talk to about what went well. Review the performance goals for the next game, and always, again, end with the team's statement. So the two meetings, the post-game and pre-game, may have to happen at the same time, and you may have to do it while the team is eating. But keep it as efficient and as positive as possible. Just out there taking care of business. Post-competition meeting. Same structure as the post-game meeting. Follow along you can use the journal or you can use your post-game meeting agenda. The timing may depend on outcome and travel. If you have to leave the venue right away, maybe the post-game meeting waits until everybody gets home. If it's been a particularly tough loss, maybe you really have to take a break and give everybody some space. If you're out early and you have to wait to travel, then perhaps it can happen at the venue. Or if it's a disappointing outcome, a break might be wise to let everyone process it. If it's a goal attained, then maybe it's an opportunity to celebrate. The last situation is, or can be, is if this is adjournment for the team. This is the last competition that this team is going to have as a team. They're aging out, somebody's moving on, the team is going in all different directions. Is there an opportunity to celebrate? Can you turn it into a celebration? The post-competition meeting is also an opportunity to analyze and record performance in order to inform your future process goals. What needs work? What did we do well? What can we do differently? I do apologize. I don't know if this is the if it's joined me or if it's my laptop. But the fourth or fifth end break is another time when you need to have a meeting. It's another quick meeting, but it can be structured as much as you can. You can plan ahead, have food ready, have the snacks ready to go. Bio breaks are going to be a necessity, possibly. Nutrition, injury can all impact what can be accomplished in that fourth or fifth end break. Decide ahead who leads the meeting. What is the script? You can develop a script. Is it the skip? It doesn't have to necessarily be you leading the meeting. It can be any one of the other players. focus on the remainder of the game as far as strategy is concerned. Look at the scoreboard. You can plan that in the end leading up to the break. It's also an opportunity to check in, see how everybody's doing. Is there anything that they've observed? How is the ice? Are the brushers able to inform the skip with regard to ice calling? Save the woulda, coulda, shouldas to the post-game meeting unless it is going to contribute to something positive for the rest of the game. So make this meeting efficient and positive, and don't talk about a strategy mistake in the second end unless it will positively impact performance in the remainder of the game. Save that discussion if you can until the end of the game. Timeouts. Timeouts are tricky. At nationals, and I believe at provincials as well, they're 90 seconds, but that 90 seconds includes coach travel time. And I think we all remember the situation that Dan Carey got into in Moose Jaw last year. I don't know what he was thinking, because he's been to nationals before. He knows what the rules are, but he was not, you're not allowed to run, but you can walk briskly down to your team at the other end. And Dan kind of moseyed down. By the time he got there, his timeout was almost over. So make sure that you're efficient. The coach whose team called the timeout can only access the team in the playing area. At least that's the rules at provincials and nationals. The other team, the team who has not called the timeout, their coach at nationals anyway has to stay behind the scoreboard, and the team has to come down to the coach. So make sure that you have a plan for that. Will they come down, or is that a decision that they're going to make? Maybe they're in total control of the game and they don't really need to meet with you at that moment. If one of the team members is nearby and you want to have a chat with them, then that's fine. How are they using their timeout? Are they using it because their clock is running low, or do they really want to meet with you for the last shot of the game? Discuss that ahead of time. Have a plan for that. When you get to them, who speaks first? Is the team going to ask for your opinion, or is it just assumed that they want it? Do they want you to tell them what shot to play, or do they want to hear the what ifs? If we do this, they do that. So make sure that can be planned ahead to a certain degree. Another situation that you can run into at nationals, or where you have a fifth person, especially if it's a very experienced fifth person, a competitive player, who goes out for the timeout? Is it the coach, or is it the fifth? You see a lot more often now at nationals where it's the fifth that is going out. So it's just something to consider. Not that you'll always have a fifth player with you, but just another consideration. Len, thank you very much for this suggestion. I think it's a great one about having a new team member or new team, what to do with them in the first meeting. So Len provided me with this outline that he is using as he goes into the next season, and I think it's a good one. He's keeping the meeting short. He's doing introductions, including the parents, if it's a junior team. Perhaps one or two questions about everyone's experience, goals, or something they would like the team to know about them. Sharing the coach's philosophy, confirming contact information, and any questions that need to be answered immediately. You can always schedule a longer meeting later to allow everyone to process the first meeting. And then Len is going to send out a questionnaire to be returned to the coach with more extensive information. So that's a good thing, because everybody is a little more comfortable, perhaps, especially being new, putting it down in writing rather than having to express it out loud to everybody. Keeping it short, as I said, and focused may make team members more comfortable. Keep it relaxed and fun. It can be short. It can involve an activity. When you're, now that many of us are conducting these meetings online, play a game. 2 truths and a lie can be played online. Or ask each player to, okay, I've got a question here, but I'll get to that in a second. Don't go away. Ask each player to write questions ahead of time and be an interviewer. So each player gets to interview another player on the team with questions that they've written ahead of time. Depending on the team, the coach may want to vet those, may want to have a look at them before the questions are asked, just in case. You never know what kind of thinker you might have on the team. So I have a question here. Timeouts. Does the team culture determine whether the coach orders a shot or defers to the skip? That is a good question, and that is the case. That it depends on the relationship that the coach and the team have. It also depends on how a skip or whoever is throwing the rock feels about the shot. If the wrong, and I'm using air quotes on that, if the wrong shot is called and the outcome is as the coach has predicted, there's a lesson in that. So the loss, if it leads to a loss or a loss of points, there's a lesson to be learned in it. And sometimes the best way for people to learn is by experience. When they're making those decisions, the next time they get into a similar situation, they can reach back into that memory bank and say, oh yeah, coach wanted me to play this shot and this is why. So there are lessons there. What about when the coach calls the timeout? How does that discussion start? That's a good question. I think if I was the one that had called the timeout, then I would probably be the first one to speak, but I would probably ask a question rather than making a statement. Have you looked at this shot? You know, because often, especially if there's a lot of rocks in play, players may not have even considered the shot that you're thinking of. So again, you can plan that ahead of time. Make that part of your preseason discussion. Write a script. You almost write a script for it. For your pregame meetings, do you still have rock books for certain venues? Is it worth keeping this info, as most ice techs will sand the rocks before major tournaments, so this information is always changing? A rock book doesn't hurt as long as you use it only as a guide. The other piece of advice I always give to teams is make friends with the ice maker. Brent Adamson in Thunder Bay always makes me laugh because he says, you can come to me and ask me anything, and I will tell you what I know, but I'm not volunteering the information. You have to ask. So make friends with the ice maker. Find out. You can ask about rocks. They may tell you, they may not, but the rock book is still only a guide. And I think with junior teams, sometimes we focus too much on rocks as well. You don't let it become the focus. Take the information. Tell your players, if you think you've got a situation with rocks, then change them as soon as you think that. And decide, as you all know in advance, of course, who gets the rocks and needs to manage them. Okay. So in conclusion, develop your agenda and try to stick to it for each of the different meetings. Set a start time and an end time. If the discussion is getting bogged down, bring the focus back as quickly and as positively as possible. If things start to become repeated or things start to become heated, try to bring everybody back into focus, back into the center. A parking lot is also a helpful tool. If something comes up at a meeting, it isn't something that can be addressed right at that moment. Perhaps there isn't time. It's not critical that it be addressed right away. Put it in the parking lot and make sure that it comes up at an appropriate time. Take notes. If you can't take notes right at the moment because you want to focus, you can record the meeting on your phone, or you can have somebody else take notes. And try to always finish on a positive note. Finishing with that team statement is to me a good idea because it brings everybody back together. This is what our goal is. Remember, this is about the team. So try to separate your agenda as a coach from the teams if buy-in isn't happening. So you may, sometimes you have to chip away at the agenda. You may not be able to get it accomplished as quickly as you want to get the team on the path that you want them on, but chip away at it and lead them down the path as opposed to pushing them down the path. I thought this was an appropriate slide for this time in our life. This is the end. And guess what? We're frozen again. It's a toilet paper roll. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions, or I will send out a sample of the journal page that I was talking to you about. I will send out a sample of that when I send out the meeting recording. And now, are there any questions or comments, or what has your experience been? Anybody want to jump in?
Well, Andrea, it's Paul Carr.
Hi, Paul.
I've been to a lot of these, and you know what? This has been very comprehensive and useful, so I want to thank you for especially the note.
Oh, I lost you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay.
You got that? It was very
You're back.
good.
You're back.
Well done.
Oh, thank you very much.
I've got that empty roll of paper here, apparently.
Okay, well, if anybody else have anything, I will be sending out the recording, and I will send another copy of the slides. Oh, okay, here we have a question. How do you deal with a really quiet, shy team in meetings? Yeah, that's a good question. You know, it's a slow process. Having them contribute to the agenda will sometimes help with discussion. Asking questions, but not singling people out with your questions. Building that comfort level. Team, finding something fun for the team to do, you know, before meetings, or getting people relaxed somehow through some kind of activity will often help people open up a little bit. Have them write things down. Have a team communication box. If they're too shy to make a suggestion or ask a question, have them write it down and put it in the box, and then you'll get to them.
Andrea, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
One of the things with teams that are shy and are, afraid to talk, I've experienced that going for a walk and everybody's walking forward in the same direction instead of just looking at each other.
Yes.
It's a really good way to get people to start saying the things they want to say, and they're using burning some physical energy, and it seems to always be really productive if people are quiet and don't want to say what they have to say.
I thought of that this afternoon, Carol. I'm glad you brought that up, because you're not face to face, you're side by side.
Exactly.
And when you're moving down the sidewalk, that you'll have one-on-one conversations going on between team members, between you and other team members. So that's a great, great conversation. And there's another comment here that it could be a flag to have some one-on-one conversations with team members. And that's a good point too, because you're validating perhaps their nervousness or their shyness or whatever, and making them more comfortable. And there's a perfect example, Carol, of going out for a walk, one at a time after a game. I had a manager that's how she dealt with performance issues on the team. She'd say to the person, "Come walk with me."
Yeah. Difficult,
then you knew you were in trouble.
Discussions. Yeah. Difficult discussions are always better when you're moving forward.
Yes, exactly. Another question here, what do you do when you have a member a lot younger than the rest of the team? And that is definitely something that we run into at smaller clubs, and where you really have to search for team members. I think that's a really good situation too, to have a one-on-one discussion, not just with each of the team members, but especially with the younger one. If he seems or she seems a little bit standoffish, what can we do? What can I do to make you more comfortable? Is there some way that you would like to contribute that I don't know of? So a one-to-one and just setting behavioral expectations for the rest of the team. This is our situation. These are our team members. They're great team members. Let's support each other, and finding ways to do that. Team building is great. And so that allows me a little plug. The next session is on Thursday, not Wednesday, May the 21st, and Sherry Madaw is going to be sharing her experiences in team building and creating a comfortable atmosphere. So Thursday, not Wednesday, Thursday, everybody will, there'll be a whole lot of good discussion about team dynamics. Good point just brought up on the chat. If you're having a one-to-one, don't forget the rule of 2. So you need to have another coach, ideally another certified coach within earshot, another adult within earshot, and if there are no other adults around, you have to have somebody else in the room. So good point. It's a 2-to-1, but that person should be strictly there as an objective, or observer, unbiased. That's the word I'm looking for, unbiased observer. Good points, everybody. Really good points. Okay. Anybody else have anything that you'd like to share? All right. Well, thank you very much. The slides and the recording, as always, are for your use. Please don't share them outside of our group without permission. You can always contact me for permission. I'll get that recording out to you within the next few days, and I will also be entering your participation into the locker. So have a great evening, everybody. Stay safe, and I hope to have a lot of you on the call on Thursday, May the 21st with Sherry Madaw. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.